Today we're taking a closer look at Corral Copper's past, where small-scale miners first uncovered signs of a promising system over a century ago. These historic workings give us valuable clues as we continue to unlock the project's full potential.
Historical earthwork all around here. There were several named small-scale mines that were mined in the early 1900s and again in the 1960s. And once we get down around the corner closer to ERP, you'll see a cement copper facility where they took a lot of this material and threw it into the vats just down around the corner.
So you can see the dumps over here. They're kind of a light brown in color, and that's oxidizing sulfide. So there's a lot of very high-grade sulfide here. It oxidizes close to the surface. It turns the iron into an oxide like a rust. And that's the general color you're seeing. The reds and the browns are indicative of massive sulfide and oxidation.
And just right through this valley here was the old railroad route that circled down and around all the way to Douglas. So again, here we are at the holiday zone, and it's important to point out, as Chris mentioned previously, we've got this mineralized trend that we now know of that starts at here in Holiday. It goes about 3 kilometers to the south, all the way to Ringo, and we still have tremendous search space for additional mineralization.
And also, another aspect of this is between 300 and 400 meters wide. So it stretches 3 kilometers to the south, about 300 to 400 meters wide. There's a lot of oxidizing sulfide here. It produced acid. It's very likely that we've got some sort of an enrichment blanket, oxides or black copper oxide down below us, and that's an ancillary part of this deposit that we really haven't investigated yet. And just another item to point out, just behind us, opposite direction, we've got Mexican Hat, which was drilled in the 1990s, and that is probably about 500,000 to 900,000 ounces of gold. Owned by another company, but it just goes to show you that we're in proximity to gold-only deposits as well. So it's a gold-enriched district. Probably different deposit types. Nevertheless, we've got gold here at different ages.
So here we are at the ERP area of the project. So in behind here, you can see a lot of the old workings as well. We drilled a number of holes. We just left the Holiday area, which is about 1.5 kilometers to the north. And next we're going to rotate down into the Ringo zone, which is about 1 kilometer just on the other side of this hill over here. So that kind of sets up that 3.5 kilometer trend of known mineralization that we touched on earlier.
We're standing on a gold mine. Okay, well, we're at the site of 2 of the holes that we looked at the core shed. And we're sort of at the southern edge of the drilled area, and this was hole 11 and hole 23 is over here. And we kind of discussed the grades at the core shed, but we were looking at a few 100 meters of really good rock.
Yeah, no, hole 11 again, when we start talking about over 100 meters of 1% copper, that's something that really kind of separates us, knowing that it's starting right at surface. And as Chris mentioned, we're in around the heart of Ringo in many ways. So to the north, we pass through the ERP area and up into the Holiday area. And then just a little bit further south, just on the other side of the ridge here, is our new planting zone, which we're really excited about. And then a little bit further towards the west, you run into a new area. We haven't quite yet named it, but it's showing a lot of potential for porphyry mineralization. Chris talked about the value of the rock. So where we stand today on the top of Ringo and thinking that 20 meters below us is where we get into massive copper grades. To Chris's point, no one would have ever known. It came from some of the historical geophysics that was done, and that mag signature that Chris talked about, some of the magnetite in the core, was why they likely drilled here in the first place, which provides us ample search space moving forward, because a lot of the mineralization is not just tied to some of the magnetic zone, and we proved that by drilling other areas.
And at these thicknesses, it's probably going to be an open pit. But you can imagine if we've got 200 meters, its gross metal value is probably over 100, 150, maybe even $200 a ton. We have to move all that. And to move it, say the gross metal value is, say, $200 a ton, which is good for an open pit. It's excellent. The recovery of that $200 a ton is probably restricted to maybe 90%. Most copper deposits recover about 92% of the copper, more or less. And then the gold is a separate recovery, which has to be worked out in the metallurgical lab. But when we start this, we look at those numbers. To mine it, you're probably looking at $3 a ton to break the rock and move it. You take it to a mill where you recover the gold and copper. That's another process. That might be another $15 a ton. And then to refine it, you're probably looking at another $20 a ton. Even with all those expenses, the mining, the milling, the refining, it still leaves us plenty of room to make a profit out of that. And that's always what we're looking at. What is the final value of all that material? It's a volume grade problem.